Hey, I'm Zac.
And I'm Jesse.
And you're watching In Depth.
On Now You Know.
Help support our channel by going to ecoware.us, where we carbon offset the production, shipping, and life cycle of every product, and we plant a tree for every order. You can find all sorts of new designs going up all the time. And this is an oldie but goodie, but it has to do with the show.
And brought to you by abetterrouteplanner.com. They just came out with their new premium version of A Better Route Planner, and you can get a free 30-day trial if you use our link in the description below.
Yeah, and they've got a new simple mode, which is really cool. They're coming out with all sorts of new features, so go check it out. And we're sponsored by our friends at the solar-powered hotels in Schaumburg, Illinois. Yeah, they're solar-powered. They have solar panels on the roof. The Fairfield Inn & Suites by Marriott and the Town Place Suite Hotel right next door. They're both connected, they're both solar-powered, and they both got EV charging. All right, so the idea for this show started with the tweet, like so many other things that Elon does. And this tweet from Tesla Truck Club said, "It would be great if the Cybertruck's rear window could roll down into the rear wall and then the whole wall fold in on top of the folded rear seats. Perfect for camping when the tonneau is closed and for carrying things longer than 8 feet." And Elon said,
"Worth considering."
Well,
that's very exciting.
This got my brain going, and I think a lot of people kind of like this idea. So I think the first thing we should talk about is this idea new? Did this come from, Twitterverse, or has this been around before? What is this that we're talking about?
So this, it actually has a name, and it would be called the midgate. And this is a feature that was in a couple of different vehicles. Chevy Avalanche would probably be the best known version of this vehicle. Also,
can you show a Chevy Avalanche there, Brent?
There we go.
Okay.
And then also the Cadillac EXT, which you can see here.
No, wait, Brent, could you show the Cadillac EXT?
That is it. They both look...
No, that's the Avalanche.
No. They look eerily similar. They look extraordinarily similar.
Oh, because Chevy made both of them.
They made both of them.
So what, they just changed the nameplate?
Nameplate, maybe a couple body panels.
Okay, so these two trucks had a midgate.
Yeah, and so what that was is basically everything that we were talking about here. You fold down the rear seats. That rear section folds down. And in fact, in the Avalanche, you'd take the glass that is your rear windshield and you'd put it kind of underneath the seats before you folded down the midgate. And I think there was another one, the Hummer H2 XUT. So that's another pickup truck style truck that had a midgate, which meant that you could fold down. And that gives you, again, more room in the bed. And it kind of connects the bed with the cab, which in the case of the Avalanche and all these other pickup trucks didn't give you any kind of advantage because there was no real reason that you'd need to be crawling back and forth. There was no protection over the bed. I mean, there were bed covers, but they didn't have anything like the tonneau cover on the Cybertruck.
That's really important to mention here because the Cybertruck has the tonneau cover, which you can actually stand on. I mean, we see Elon standing on it here in that Jay Leno episode. And so no truck that I've heard of has something like this. You can put a cover on the back of a cab, but nothing that opens and closes with an automatic, push of a button.
Well, yeah, and also nothing that kind of goes up. Usually everything just follows the top of the bed, and the top of the bed is usually parallel with the road.
Right.
And so this creates a different kind of interior if you were able to fold down that mid gate and have, the whole interior of the truck space be the interior of the truck.
Yeah, I got really excited when I heard about this, and we posted a poll on our Patreon to see if other people were excited about it, and I think they were. Check this out.
So 187 people out of 470 said that this is something that I would pay more for if it were an option. And then there were 244 people who said I wouldn't pay more for that, but I wouldn't mind if it were standard. Okay. So that's a pretty good...
Yeah, who like it, who want it.
Right. Then there were 18 people who said, I don't want that feature. Okay. I want the Cybertruck as it is. So the one that we saw at the unveiling. 5 people said I wasn't interested in the Cybertruck, but this feature would convince me.
Wait, so more than 1% of the people would actually be turned on to the Cybertruck because of this feature, even though they wouldn't have been before.
Right.
So, this isn't a completely new idea, as we just heard of, but if you add the stainless steel tonneau cover, which the Cybertruck does, then I believe this opens up many new possibilities that have never existed.
No. You are forgetting about the GMC Envoy XUV. Do you remember this? Came out between 2003 to 2005.
Yes, I do remember this. You could stand up like a refrigerator or something in the back because it had a movable tonneau cover. That was really cool, the usability factor, but I don't know if it looked that cool. And so I don't remember seeing many of them on the road.
Right. I think that you kind of look at it in terms of utility and then you go, but in terms of looks and in terms of problems with leaks, you might be thinking like, I don't know. I might just, get a, SUV for my wife and a pickup truck for my husband.
And here's the difference. That's still basically an SUV that you can open and close the top on, but you wouldn't dump a bunch of gravel or dirt in the back of that. Like,
True.
That's not a pickup truck. So it's probably in a slightly different class here. Because here with the Cybertruck, you could fill that back up with any pickup truck item you wanted.
Right. And especially with the back being all stainless steel, you can just kind of get back there with a pressure washer and just pressure wash away and not have to worry about, scratches or dents or rust. But in fact, this idea is even older. There was the Studebaker Wagonaire. Check this out.
Here is something for you to see. It's the swingingest wagon that'll ever be. You've never seen any car to compare with the brand new Lark Daytona Wagonaire. The roof slides open in a flash. Step drop down, you step in. The sky is the limit in this wagon, the Lark Daytona Wagonaire.
The Wagonaire, the car that makes other station wagons obsolete, with Studebaker features that you'll want to see. The ladies will love the exclusive beauty vanity complete with mirror. And you can have your Wagonaire equipped with caliper disc brakes. At higher speeds, they stop your car in about half the distance of conventional brakes. A totally new concept from Studebaker. A family convertible, carry-all, fun car. A new design from the advanced thinking of Studebaker Corporation.
Wow, that sounds great, Bob.
Yeah, this was 1963.
Yeah.
And yeah, they did the exact same thing, but with a station wagon.
I mean, it's a really cool idea. I can see why they did it. I mean, look at all these different uses that you can do with it. I love that there's a little hook step there hanging down from the tailgate so you can hop in easy.
Right. It shows that the, that ad that they keep showing where people are like, oh, and it's a step that comes down from your pickup truck. Not a new idea. 1963. And this went till 1966. But the biggest problem here, again, was leaks. Essentially, they hadn't truly figured out exactly the right way to do it.
Well, so what I heard was that in the first year that they did it, there were leaks, but that's because people hadn't read their owner's manual and they hadn't cleaned out. There was like basically a gutter area that you had to clean out, and they didn't, and so water got backed up. Once the factory worked on a solution the next year, most of those problems went away, and so it just sounded like it was kind of bad communication with owners, but I guess that led to kind of bad vibes out in the customer world where it was like, oh, I think that thing leaks.
It shows a certain level of innovation that, although improperly implemented back then, was still a pretty interesting design.
Yeah, I mean, the Wagonaire roof design was the invention of Brooks Stevens, who was charged by the Studebaker president Sherwood Egbert to expand the company's limited model range without spending lots of money on retooling. So pretty good solution to come up with. And Stevens came up with this, actually, in 1959, the Scimitar concept car, which was shown at the 1959 Geneva Auto Show. And this is where the roof concept and the midgate came from. From what I hear, there was only 3 of these Scimitars made, but look at this car. It's pretty amazing for its time.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly kind of goofy looking. And
Goofy?
The funny thing is that the idea here didn't catch on.
Yeah, I mean, it was almost maybe before its time. The concept here is really cool, though. It actually promoted the use of aluminum in cars back in 1959. I mean, how innovative is that? And I just want to talk about Studebaker for a second here. The Studebaker brothers, there are 5 of them. They started the Studebaker Manufacturing Company back in 1852, back when there was just horse wagons and buggies. And then they started making electric cars in 1902. And then 2 years later, they started making their first gas cars. So they made the electric cars there first, and they were an independent car company until 1966.
So, okay, but that was a fun history, and essentially what we're talking about is completely different than a Studebaker.
But what I want to talk about here is that nowadays we're sold this concept that you're buying an SUV, right? I mean, my Model X, for instance, is touted as an SUV, a sport utility vehicle. But I would argue there's not a whole lot of utility built into my Model X. I mean, we've carried some stupid stuff in it, no doubt. Lumber, concrete, cement blocks. But it's not really made for that. It's made to carry people. And, looking at these pictures here, you can see why. It's a luxury vehicle, but where's the utility part? Like, it can tow.
Right.
But aside from that, you really shouldn't be putting all the stuff in it that we put in it.
And now there are lots of other gas-powered SUVs in the world that are more utilitarian in the sense that there is a little bit more cargo space. It can seat more people. It's just a more humongous vehicle that you can just shove stuff in. And then there are also the, pickup truck counterparts.
Well, and that's where the utility comes in.
Right.
I mean, in my opinion, the whole reason why pickup trucks are so popular in the United States is it gives you this idea that you can do pretty much anything with it, right? Whatever you come up with that weekend, you're going to be able to put it in the truck.
Right.
And you're not going to have to worry about messing up the back of your family SUV.
Right.
But I would argue that a Cybertruck with a midgate option opens up a ton of possibilities. So here are some of the things you could do with a Cybertruck that has a midgate. First is easy peasy, lumber and long stuff.
Stuff that won't normally fit in the bed. You fold down the midgate and, you're not going to be bringing 6 people along with you. It's just like, I'm going to go pick up the lumber. Bob and Joe, you can come with me and help me load it. And then we'll come back and drop off everything.
Right, because the problem with the traditional pickup truck or even the Cybertruck without a midgate is that you're kind of limited to what lengths you can buy. And even though a homeowner might think, well, 8 feet, that's pretty long, there's a lot of times when you want to pick up stuff that's 10, 12, 14 feet long, and that's just not going to fit. Second thing is tall stuff. So refrigerators, trees that you want to plant, moving large boxes for your buddy who's going to move to Cleveland.
Right. All these tall things, they can't fit in an SUV because of the fixed roof. And so by having the tonneau cover, being able to, covering things that you want covered, like cardboard boxes if you're going to be driving through the rain, but then being able to stand up giant refrigerators in the back creates a whole other utility class for this vehicle, which, again, all pickup trucks can do.
But here's the next one, road trips. A lot of people want a car that they can road trip in because once in a while you want to go on one, but you would never want to road trip in a pickup truck, or at least that's not your first choice usually, because first of all, you usually can't fit a lot of people in a pickup truck, and second of all, your stuff in the back is going to get wet unless you've got some kind of cover on it. You can't get stuff from the front to the back easily. There's just all sorts of reasons why a pickup may not be your road trip car, but a Cybertruck with a midgate could be the perfect road trip truck, because think about this, you then have access to everything in the back.
Exactly. And that leads to the fourth thing, which is sleeping.
Yeah. So typically, you go to a long day at the beach and then the kids hop in the back and they fall asleep in the rear seat, but they're sleeping like this, which for kids is fine. But I don't know about you, but if I fall asleep like that, my neck is screwed up for days. I want to be able to sleep laying down. So with the midgate feature, you could do that. Yeah, so you could stretch out in the back of the Cybertruck in a nice comfy dream case, right? But instead of being in the back of a pickup truck, which now means you're kind of removed from communication and music and AC and all that stuff, you're in the car.
Right.
And here's the beauty part. What if you want them in the car but not really in the car? Like, for instance, you want to be able to play some music in the front while I'm sleeping in the back. You just put up the wall between us, and then if I need to get in touch with you, I just tap on the window. Hopefully you open it, and then, right? So, I mean, it's like the best of both worlds in terms of sleeping. Oh, and unlike a regular pickup truck, the tonneau cover can be opened or closed depending on the weather. And now here's the fifth thing, and maybe the most exciting thing, I think, about the use of a midgate for the Cybertruck, camping.
Right. Lots of people have been getting into van life recently with housing prices going up, and people are just like, oh, I could buy a house, or I could buy a house that moves. And with it kind of comes a lot of different new ideas about how you can go on vacations, for example. This would be a great option for people who don't really want to buy an RV, who don't really want to buy a van in the typical sense, who want to have a vehicle that is their day-to-day vehicle that can basically handle anything transportation related, and also have the option to go camping.
Yeah, because if we've all seen these pictures that Tesla put out of what the camping could look like in a Cybertruck, but you'd still be removed from the cab in that situation, which means you don't have access to the music, you don't have access to the air conditioning. Whereas now, with the midgate open or the window open, you could have access to that while you're in the back camping. Since we've just shown you this came out in the 60s and then it came out again in the 2000s, you might be thinking, well, this obviously isn't that great an idea because it didn't catch on. And I agree that some aspects of this have been tried before, but I would argue that they weren't implemented that well. I mean, not everybody is going to want this midgate option, but as our poll has shown, a lot of people would like it, and it could even potentially bring in people who would have never considered buying a Cybertruck before, because let's face it, the pickup truck has largely become something many people buy for that occasional use case. I mean, I might need to do something like pick up some mulch that requires the bed of a pickup truck, but far more often than that, you're going to have people that you want to move around. And that's the problem here, is that In a typical pickup truck, you're making a choice when you buy it that either am I going to be moving people or stuff?
And that's the decision between SUV and pickup truck, or pickup truck with extended cab, where the trade-off is gas mileage, even more so than your pickup truck or SUV.
Right. And you're still basically carrying around either an extra large cab that you may not need that often because you really just wanted the bed, or you're carrying around a bed all the time that you didn't really need that often because you needed to carry around people. You're making that compromise all the time when you drive it. But with the midgate, if implemented well, it would give customers way more possibilities, way more utility. And isn't that what most people want, is the option?
So the midgates that we've been seeing in the past are large, chunky affairs that needs lots of steps to fold down seats and get stuff out of the way in order to get the midgate open.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's one of the things that made those cars in the past, like the Envoy, not that exciting, because you had to stop what you were doing in your driveway and probably spend the morning getting the truck ready for what you were going to do next. But this is the Cybertruck. And if Elon and Franz decide to do this, they are going to approach this differently, I bet. So why does the midgate have to be this big structural box? I would conjecture that since we're using 3mm stainless steel on the rest of the exoskeleton, they might be able to figure out a way to make the midgate thin, and so that they could design some kind of elegant open and close mechanism. I mean, maybe fold it out into the bed or roll it out like the tonneau cover. I mean, I'm not an engineer, so I don't know.
Right.
But I think they're going to come up with something, if they decide to do this, that's way different than something we've seen in the past.
Right. And are we saying that they need to do this? No. I think that the Cybertruck itself would sell perfectly well. But I think that there are so many use cases for the midgate in the Cybertruck that it would get people's minds thinking in a completely different way. To have this essentially big, giant, bulletproof box that you can stuff full of things, climb into the back, fall asleep, do whatever you want. It really gets the imagination stirring, and that usually gets pocketbooks out.
Yeah, I mean, I think we just kind of touched on a few use cases here for the midgate in the Cybertruck. We haven't even had the chance to fully wrap our heads around all the possibilities. So please let us know in the comments ideas that you have, or maybe you have an Envoy or a Studebaker Wagonaire. I mean, let us know what you've seen and how they've been used, because that's really cool to get new ideas. But I want to end on this one thought. Big Auto has an incentive to not answer all of your needs with a single car. I mean, think about that for a second. It's in their best interest that they sell you this idea that everyone should have their own car. Daddy should have a pickup truck, mommy should have a minivan or an SUV for the kids, etc.
Right. Oh, single young women should have hip Honda Fits, and big strong men should have big powerful sports cars. On and on and on and on.
Yeah, so families often feel that they have to own multiple cars for all the different use cases that a family runs into, commuting and trips and weekend trips to Home Depot and soccer games. But what if the Cybertruck could answer all of those use cases?
Because a lot of people have realized during this global pandemic that some people aren't going to have to actually commute to work every day. Some people are going to be able to actually stay home most of the time and basically save themselves a commute every day, which is awesome because that's going to save them time. It's also going to save the whole world lots of pollution and energy and all sorts of stuff like that. But it also means that people are going to no longer need as many vehicles. And you might be thinking to yourself, if you're imagining fewer vehicles, a smaller and smaller vehicle that's shrinking and disappearing. But what will actually happen is people who live in places where the car is really the only way to get around are going to need to mash everything together. And so you usually see people either going for a hatchback or maybe a pickup truck, or maybe something in between that kind of covers what they want. But if you want something that's going to cover all the bases, that's going to be able to transport you, move you, take people with you, go camping, even commuting on the cheap, because electricity is going to be so much cheaper than powering your car with gas, Cybertruck could fit all of those roles. And I mean, there are so many other opportunities with the Cybertruck that we haven't even started to consider. I mean, it does have 2 rows of 3 seats each, so we're talking 6 seats there. But it would be possible with the rail system in the back of the Cybertruck to maybe add some more seats.
Yeah, you could put 2 rear-facing seats, let's say, in the back of under the tonneau cover and have 8 people sit in the car safely.
Right, we don't know what's possible from Tesla, especially because they often surprise us with features that simply haven't existed before, say with the Falcon Wing doors. And by going to something a bit simpler with the Cybertruck, they could implement not only the midgate, but lots of other neat features that haven't existed yet before.
We need to come up with, in my opinion, a new word to describe this truck, because we're calling it a pickup truck, but with a midgate, this could now enter a new realm. It's not even a sport utility because it's so utilitarian, and yet it's so luxurious.
Right.
Like, I don't know what to call it, because what's a vehicle that you can fill with mulch, but also put your family in, and the two never have to meet?
Right.
That's never been invented before that I know of. So luxury utility vehicle, a love.
I don't know what it could possibly be, but I mean, I want to hear all of your thoughts. There are lots of different use cases that we haven't gone through yet in terms of what could be possible with the Cybertruck, especially if it has a midgate. So let us know what you think. Let us know if you think it's impossible.
And let us know if you think that instead of just guys who seem to be the main ones talking about it right now, what do you think once this hits the road and everyone gets to experience it? Do you think it could become a family vehicle so that the whole family would be interested in having one, not just like, I'm going to buy one to have a pickup truck? So I hope you found this episode enjoyable. We're going to be one of the first YouTubers that we know of to get the Cybertruck. We believe we're like in the top 20 on the list to get them. So we should be getting it as early as possible. And comment below. I mean, right now I'm signed up to get the middle package, which
Mid-range,
is the mid-range with the two motors. I could be convinced to go tri-motor. I mean, especially if there is some tank turn option here. I mean, I guess you need 4 motors to do that, right?
Not necessarily.
I mean, if I hear anything about tank turn, I think I might change my order. But
That's going to be the convincing factor.
I think so. I mean, I've never owned a vehicle that could do that, so that would be cool. Anyway, let us know in the comments below what you guys are getting. And also, don't forget to head over to one of our sponsors, Cybertruck Owners Club, where they've got a tracker so you can check to see where you are on the list.
Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Now you know.